week's Tech Talk. The Tech Talk series is put on by the University of Idaho Libraries Data Hub, which supports scripting, programming, data processing, GIS at the University of Idaho. As part of that, we like to hold a series of talks to connect scholars and researchers and students with tools, software, workflows for doing research in the information age and online. So to that end, this week we have Bruce Godfrey, our GIS librarian here, and he's going to talk to us about ModelBuilder in ArcGIS Pro, something to hopefully help you streamline and automate some of your GIS workflows. And if you have any questions during the talk, feel free to just shout them out. I'll be monitoring the chat, but we'll also have a Q&A section afterwards if you want to hold it till then. Otherwise, Bruce, take it away.
Yep, thank you. How many do we have online right now?
We have 7 online.
7 online. Okay, 7 online, 1 in person. Okay, so this workshop serves as an introduction to ModelBuilder within ArcGIS Pro. It assumes familiarity with Pro to a certain extent, and it assumes very little or no experience with ModelBuilder. But real quickly, online, just via chat, does anybody have experience with ModelBuilder or no? And do you in person, have you used ModelBuilder at all?
For one lab exercise in an undergrad GIS class, we
Okay.
used it,
Okay,
but we did that in our map.
okay,
In
okay,
Pro,
so pro.
I,
Okay. What about online? Is anybody indicating that they've used it or not used it?
Nothing from online.
Nothing online. Okay.
One used ModelBuilder and ArcMap a long time ago.
Okay. Okay, very good. So
Thank you.
hopefully this will be, thank you for that information. Hopefully this will be helpful to get folks started in ModelBuilder in ArcGIS Pro if it looks like it's something that's going to be helpful for the work you're doing. So I got a set of slides that's kind of just an overview of ModelBuilder, and then we can look at some examples and build a model. Less than a half hour ago, I think I sent an email with a project attached, a project package, if you want to use that as kind of a sandbox, or you can certainly use any project that you create, and we'll just create a small model.
And but it like
So what is ModelBuilder? It's as Ezra refers to it as a visual programming environment, but it helps us build geoprocessing workflows in Pro. And the model diagram that they refer to is once you launch ModelBuilder, you see the model display area and all the tools that are available within it. So their language as a model diagram is that layout.
Yeah.
So there are options for the display in ModelBuilder itself. If you want to, change the font, if you want to change the font size, your layout options are under the project and options tab. As you get to other global settings for ArcGIS Pro, there is one specifically for ModelBuilder there. If you like to have your layout look different than their default, you can get to it that way through Project Options ModelBuilder. And also you can further change the diagram around under the diagram tab once you're in a model. So if you want the elements to be spaced out, further than they are, or if you want the way the presentation is handled to be different than the default, you have some options there for doing that. You can place a grid on there, if you want to have the layout, more to your taste. So those are the options for adjusting ModelBuilder's appearance in the models and workflows that you create. So kind of two options there. One, if you go into the kind of the global settings, you have a couple of options. And then if you're in the diagram tab, once you have a model open, you can change more around. So let's just talk for a minute about why use it. And you can certainly, do your geoprocessing steps manually if you have a workflow and launch a tool and, produce an output and launch another tool and produce an output and follow that process manually. But with ModelBuilder, you can automate that and string, different tools together and, test and repeat that. And you can, pull, a series of, complex processes together into one tool. So we can, bring a whole bunch of different geoprocessing steps together and run those as one tool. And this screen capture here is a model I did with a grad student. And these can get, as long as you want or as short as you want for the most part. And I don't know that there's a limit, but they can certainly get pretty complex. But with a tool like this, if you have to run all this manually, it becomes cumbersome at best. So ModelBuilder can really help if you have a complex process that you want to package up as one tool. So it really does help with automation. And if you're facing that in your studies or your research, I encourage you to look at ModelBuilder as an option. It's nice that you can visually represent workflows. So as a communication tool, that's pretty nice if you have that layout and you can kind of go through the workflow with an advisor or instructor. It does give you the ability to export it as a graphic, or you can, when they say create report, you have a layout that right now it just exports as XML, but it'd be nice if they allow you to create it as a PDF soon. But visually, you can see your inputs and outputs and, variables and that type of thing. So it can be a good communication tool in there. It's also helpful for sharing with others. The email that I send is just a set of tools in a project. So that's one way you could do it. You could share it as a geoprocessing package if you wanted. And you can also export that visual tool. It's all just Python in the background. So if you want to export it as a Python script, you could within Esri's environment. And then it is helpful for, depending on your place of work or as you go on to, institutional memory or repeatability in there for certain process you do repetitive tasks and it can be helpful in that way. And you can document it much the same way you do, feature classes in ArcGIS Pro with metadata about what the tool is designed to do and its intended purpose and that type of thing, what it should be used for, what it shouldn't be used for. So there are a lot of reasons you might want to use ModelBuilder to help streamline what you're doing. Okay, any questions on that? Anybody online here? No?
I actually have one if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of federal grants require data management plans and sort of supplementary materials, making your code and things open and reproducible. Does ModelBuilder fit into that, or are there other functions in ArcGIS that would serve that same purpose?
Well, to the extent that whatever model you create is going to be proprietary and it's going to use Esri's geoprocessing tools. It's not going to use maybe some open packages like would be available in something like QGIS. But you could certainly share it as just text as a Python script, and people, even if they couldn't get to those tools, they could see, the parameters and values you passed and have a good understanding of how you created a data set.
Interesting.
But to the extent the grants allow you to, use a visual model like that can only be accessed, within or having access to Pro. Um, you might have some limitations there.
It looks like we also have another question.
Mhm.
Carissa, feel free to unmute or put it in the chat or, yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I was wondering, I know the whole background of this is Python. Is there a way to um, actually integrate like Python scripting within Model Builder? Like for instance, I will be using like deep learning, machine learning within ArcGIS. And is there a way to integrate that into Model Builder?
Yeah, so you can do that. I don't have any examples of it today, but if you have those processing packages available to Pro, you should be able to access parts of the script within Model Builder if you wanted to combine those. Yeah, and some of the additional resources we refer to at the end here might be helpful to dabble into that.
Awesome.
That's a good
Thank you.
question. Mhm. Okay, so that's why we use it. So let's talk a little bit about the models themselves. There are really four elements that are primary ones for a model. The tools being, one of the biggest ones that allow us to perform these operations. And they're just like any geoprocessing tool that you've used manually in ArcGIS Pro, a clip tool or a buffer tool or, anything like that is going to be the tools that we have access to as one type of element. We can also have variables in there. Data variables being one of them, different data sets that we're bringing in, or values we can store in there and ask as a variable, like if you wanted to pass in what some buffer distance was going to be, you could let somebody choose, some numeric value for that. Then we have connectors where we're linking the different pieces together. So we link data sets to tools and that type of thing. So there's several types of connectors. Big ones you use are data ones, but you can also have environment variables and preconditions and that kind of thing. And then the last one, which for those who've used ArcMap, groups wasn't available in ArcMap, but in ArcPro, they've added that ability. When your models get very big, you can kind of group some of those processes together. So you get a little better visual presentation if it gets unwieldy and you can go into different pieces. So groups are new in Pro and that can be helpful depending on how big your model gets. And it makes it a little more manageable in that sense. So if you look at those visually, again, in the center, you have the tools, right? And you can have any geoprocessing tool that's in there. And, they have iterators built in. Like I have an example in one of the ones we do where you loop through all the data sets in a directory and do something. You could use if then else, logic tools in there, um, variables, including data and different derived values and input values that we have. The connectors where we, um, bring these different pieces together and link them. And then that groups piece to make things more manageable. So those are primary elements that we have within each model that we're able to create. So to open Model Builder, if you haven't been in there in Pro, if you go to the Analysis tab, there is a little Model Builder icon in the upper left picture. That's the one that will launch Model Builder and open a new tool for you that it creates in the toolbox. You can also go into catalog, the catalog, either one of the catalog panes there, and you can edit a model that already exists from that or create a new model, from that interface too. So there's a couple different ways to get to it. And once you create a model, you may end up just going through catalog there. And if you haven't done it, you might just launch Model Builder right there from the analysis tab. that's in Pro along the top. And then adding data and tools to a model is pretty straightforward, and we'll go through this. But from the table of contents, for example, much like you can drag a data set onto a map, you can drag it onto a model. So that brings the data set into your model. You can also do that with any geoprocessing tool. So over on the right picture there is a make feature layer, and you drag it onto your model, and it's presented within that model, and then you can connect the data to the model with those connector items that we saw, elements that we saw on the previous screen. So it's pretty friendly that way. That's one way to get these different pieces on there. You don't have to do it like that. For example, if you drag the geoprocessing tool on first and you wanted to launch that make feature tool, you could point to a data set that way and navigate to somewhere on disk. It doesn't have to exist in your table of contents, but if you're working with it there, it might be helpful to do it that way too. So. Again, there are different ways to get to it, but it's a drag and drop interface, a lot like data sets you put on a map, and that's the visual part of what Esri talks about as visual programming. As you're building tools, there's a different states as you put pieces together. If it's all in white, as you're building it, and maybe you don't have everything set up, it won't appear as it's ready to run, but it'll be in white like that and not ready to run. When it's ready to run, it'll be colored. There won't be any issues showing up, and you've validated it. It can find the data set, for example. It has access to the tool you're using and that type of thing. When the tools are running, if you have a long running model, the processes show up in red when they're running. So if you happen to glance at it and you have a long running model, you can see what step it's on because the tool color will turn red. And then if it has a drop shadow, it shows that it's already been run. Again, that can be helpful for, bigger models and that type of thing. If you're doing smaller models, it's you can always rerun it again, but it's just showing that it's completed. So those are kind of those are the different states that a model can be in when it's ready to run, not ready to run, or it's already been run. Wanted to mention that you can export this. I mean, you could screenshot it too. You can also export it to a PDF if you want to share it with someone else, or an SVG if that's helpful. Those are the two options they have right now for exporting a model to share with others in that way. And then the model report. That's on the ModelBuilder tab, and it's a presentation here, and I just screen grab this. You can export it as XML, and it said in my case that there was a style sheet within ArcPro, but I couldn't get it to work in the testing I did. But I think that should certainly be possible to present it as an XML file with the right style sheet. But it does break down, what are your data variables coming in, or what are your intermediate data sets here? And, I'm pulling in some data set, and then you can see which geoprocessing tools you're running. So in this case, the first tool to run was make a feature layer. And in this one, I use a web service called USA Counties, and I used an expression to just get Idaho out, and I created this new feature layer, right? And then in the next step, use the feature to point tool and just created a centroid for, each one of those features in the make feature layer. So it gives you the ability to kind of browse as the models get bigger, and you want to navigate through these and get another presentation of of understanding what's going on within within that model. So there's been certainly been some requests to export this as PDF, but I haven't seen that happen yet. So could be on the horizon. But a model report could be helpful to lay all that out and present all that in front of you. Okay. Next up for bigger models or bigger data sets, writing your intermediate data sets to memory can be very helpful if your model's going to get pretty big and if the data are pretty big. And I have an example of this in the project that I sent around, but not having to constantly write stuff to disks that you're not going to retain or don't need can definitely speed things up quite a bit. And it's a pretty quick fix. So in your output, if you're going to output a data set where you might give it, a local path, the only change you really need to make to that is to put memory slash in the name of the output file. If you take out the entire path, if it's trying to write to OneDrive or your C drive or something, you can prevent that from happening and have it write to memory, assuming you have enough memory and your data sets aren't, so unwieldy that it would cause a system instability. It can certainly speed up your model quite a bit. So I wanted to mention that in here because it is a valuable thing. And I found it helpful over the years for certain processes or bigger data sets where I had resources to do it. Not having to write to disk is great. Okay. That is all the slides that while I'm in here, before we come out of here, let me just do a couple other things before we go to the model. And we'll create a model. Let me mention additional resources. So after this workshop, under our higher education site license, if you're University of Idaho, we have access to Esri training modules at esri.com training, where you can sign in with your VandalNet ID. There are several on ModelBuilder if you want to go in deeper on some of these, so they can be helpful. I'm certainly always available to help, or others in and around the data hub to kind of troubleshoot things. So those might be helpful for further learning beyond what we do in this workshop. Also want to mention GIS Days coming up in November 19th. We'll have a call for presentations out real soon. So be on the lookout for that at the iSub November 19th. But let's go ahead and take a look at Arc Pro. Let me I gotta get my cursor back over here. So in the get my cursor back over here. There we go. So this is the little example project that I sent out over email a little while ago. And if you have it, those online, or if you have access to launch it, or just using another project is fine. But I figured I'd include a few data sets in it, and I include a few tools in there that might be helpful as we go. Did folks receive that? Was anybody successful at opening it up to just chat, or did you have any luck with
I
it?
only registered last night and
Oh, okay.
I used an email that I'm having trouble getting into.
Oh, okay. All right. That's okay. Did anybody online receive that email?
Did you send it out Friday?
Like a half hour ago. No,
Oh,
it was like a half hour ago.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Could have been.
Oh, yeah, they did.
Okay, cool. Okay. Well, I thought I would just, it's not necessary to have it for these examples. You could certainly go back to it later and take a look at it, but thought it would be helpful as we work through making a model. it just has two small polygon data sets in it. One up around the UI experimental forest, um, which is just to serve it as an example of a few polygon layers for some study sites. And there's one down around Rock Creek Ranch down in southern Idaho. And so in a typical project here, you've got your contents tab, the default, the catalog pane, the geoprocessing pane, where we could certainly run any tools, that we've done in the past and run those manually step after step. But then up on that analysis tab, we do have that ModelBuilder icon, and we can create a blank model and it'll open in ModelBuilder if we press this tool. Again, we can also get to them other ways. The models are created in your toolbox for that project. And in here, I have some examples. And by default, they're created in the project toolbox that's available. And if you have different toolboxes, you can create, different models and spread them out. But by default, it'll get created here. And I've got a few examples there. But if I launch this ModelBuilder tool here, it will create a new geoprocessing model. I think it's just by default called model in that toolbox. So if I click on this, and it should load ModelBuilder right up, hopefully here. I don't know why it's taking long. Okay, I created model 1 here. This is the first model that's built. So this is our diagram again, as it refers to it. And in the ModelBuilder tab, we have all these options that are available. For the model itself, you create new models in here. And it's important to note that when you're working in Pro now, as you create a model, you want to go ahead and save that model or have autosave turned on for it, which is different than saving your entire project. So this one on this toolbar is for just saving your model, while as you're familiar with the save project option up at the top. Auto layout and auto fit, you'll see as you starts getting messy, it'll, make everything look pretty in your model based on your global settings. Validating and running a model are available under the run option here. And you can delete intermediate data if you have large models and you have a bunch of intermediate data that you do write to disk, it will delete it. Access to your iterators here if you want to iterate through, a bunch of features in a feature class, or if you want to iterate through, a bunch of files on disk, different data sets, you have a lot of options. You have the ability to do if-then stuff if you want logical operations here, the ability to group and ungroup different parts of a model. So this is where you end up starting, and we're in model 1 now. And so if we wanted to do something with one of these data sets, again, we just drag and drop it over there, right? And it's going to bring that data set into our model. So that's one of our data variables there that we can just drag on here. And we can move it around and we can rename it. If we want to call it something else, we can delete it and get rid of it if we didn't want it. So you're just dragging it onto that visual programming field, I guess, here, or real estate area right in the middle, and it allows you to manipulate it from there. And then we can do the same thing with geoprocessing tools. So if we go under the geoprocessing tab and I do that feature to point, we can just drag that tool on here to that canvas also, right? So now we've got the tool, and we've got a data set that we want to work with. And one way to connect these two, if this is the data set that we want to use with this tool, we could use that connector just when you point and click on it. And that's the input feature to that tool. So you have the ability to, through the mouse click, to point to that and drag those together. And now you see how it becomes colored. And the yellow is the tool we're using. The blue is the input data, and the green is that output. And that's not the only way we could do it. I mean, if we wanted to, if we didn't take that connector back out, we could just launch this and see the interface that you see when you launch the tool manually. And we could point to those study sites that way if we didn't drag this on here. So we can get rid of that. And then we can bring the sites in that way. So we have options on how we want to do that. As you start to add a lot of this stuff, you can fit it to the size of the window and it'll do an auto layout, which is nice to make everything kind of fit together in the amount of space you have. So at that point, if you are comfortable with this being your model and you're going to run these these experimental forest study sites, and all we're doing in this model is taking the input feature and we're going to output it to this name, and we can leave these options checked or unchecked. So if we fit it to the window, we might want to get to a point where we save this model. I don't have autosave turned on, but I could save this model right here. And from this edit window, we can run it right from here if we want to. We could just hit run and we're going to end up getting an output data set in the default database here. So if we run it, you'll see it turning red now because it's executing that step, and it completed. And we should have a new data set in here, which is right here. So that's our new data set that we just created. And in this model, we're doing, one geoprocessing step. We're not doing anything, much more than what you could do manually, but it gives you an idea of getting different pieces of the model put together on here. So that in a nutshell is your first, super simple model that just does one geoprocessing step. So we can certainly get more complex as we do this. It might be nice here if this were a parameter and we could specify which study site file we wanted to bring in and convert to a point. And we might want to give it a different name as we do different data sets, right? So rather than, you can certainly hard code the whole thing. And if you don't need any options in there, that's a very good way to go about it. But you can also add parameters to it and allow folks to choose. So in this case, if we wanted someone to use this model and be able to choose a different data set, we could label this as a parameter with this little P on it. And so that'll give us, a drop down, the ability to select some file off disk somewhere. And if we wanted somebody to be able to name, the output, you could also give this a parameter. And we could save that. And then what it looks like is when you open it, we now have these two options that you can see. And I probably should have showed you, if I remove the parameters, what we did originally is not have any parameters, right? It was all hard coded. So once we do this, we can allow people options or even ourselves to make choices there. Let me go back and open it. So here we could say, oh, I'd rather use this other study site data, and I want to give it some, new name here, that it's going to be output to. Or somebody might want to output it to a different location. So the parameters give the ability to have some options there in the model. We can also in here for this ability to create your point either inside an existing polygon, or it wouldn't have to be inside an existing polygon. We could make this a variable and let people do that too, right? So this could be a variable that we would choose, and somebody could choose inside or outside or that type of thing. And I will show that here because I already have it built. So here now, we could have somebody input that in our model when we do open here. Now you have a checkbox, just like you see in the other processing tool for inside or not inside, however you want to control that. You have the ability in here to name these different things, so it's more friendly or helps you remember, almost like a little bit of metadata. And that label can be helpful if you export that as a diagram, or, in your report, if it's not just the, not very friendly name of, say, like this model, where it has just the, not very friendly file name. So taking some time as these get more complex to label them can be helpful. And again, you have that ability just by renaming them here to do that. So those parameters and values become pretty helpful to do. And in other situations, you might let somebody pass in, again, common example being buffer size. If you were going to have a buffer tool and you want somebody to input some, integer in here or something, if you wanted to have a pick list of values, that kind of thing, you could do something like that if you're going to share it. And some of this, again, depends on sharing. I don't end up doing a lot of these just myself when I'm creating a model to do something I want to do. More often than not, it's like this where I don't have parameters set, and it's, not the model a lot of the models I make aren't designed to be, shared, and they're to solve some problem for some person on kind of one thing. It's not too often that I have a lot of choices built into them, but it's certainly possible to do so. That could be a valuable thing to do. Does anybody have any questions on just getting these different elements onto the canvas here and then connecting them together? Changing the labeling on them or anything of that nature at this point?
I have a question about the parameters, but that can wait if.
Okay, no, go ahead. Let's
So I can see there's a checkbox to turn on and off parameters, but is there any way to decide which parameters are being added or are being considered? I realize I explained that poorly, but so because I didn't know how to use ModelBuilder, I built a tool just in Python.
Oh, okay.
And in there you can decide, param 1 is this thing, param 2 is this thing. Is that something we can do in ModelBuilder? Because like when I'm choosing, so this is my input file or my input data.
Yeah.
And specifically I need to set that, oh, this field is what we're going to use to determine whatever. And then this field is what we're going to use for this other thing. So those are the parameters that I had built into it.
Okay. I think if I'm understanding correctly, it might be similar to saying a variable within ModelBuilder. That'd be a good one to take a look at, though. Look at your script and want to see exactly.
Sure.
what we were doing there, but it sounds like, it might be similar to, a variable in, where did my, oh, here. Oh, darn, it's not on the screen. For those online, we're having trouble with, some of the screen sharing, so I don't know where this thing actually is now.
Yeah, it's right there.
Oh, there it is. Hold on, let me get it. I gotta go this way. Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, sorry. Um, yeah, for some reason I think in here it might be called a variable, but I don't know if I'm thinking about that correct.
Okay.
Let's take a look at that though. But that would be, kind of a global, you know, variable you could have at the onset of a model to run. So, okay. Let's move on from our real basic model here. So we had a model that we just hard coded, had really no options. We had one that we could just have with the parameters built into it if you wanted the input data set and output data set to be changed. And then we had one with parameters and this value where we allowed people to true or false pick whether the point was inside or outside. So those were a couple of, I'm not going to save any change there, a couple of examples that we had. Let me go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and delete this. And then let's look at this one example that uses an iterator on it, because it could be helpful to take a look at that in edit mode here. So these are built into ModelBuilder 2. In this case, I have two feature classes inside this feature data set in the geodatabase here. And the iterator will allow us to go through, all these feature classes and perform some operation. So on the first models where you chose one, you got to output. You chose another, you got to output. In this one, we could just iterate through them all and feature types, and then it could be recursive if you wanted it to be in there. So it'll go through them all. Name becomes a variable, so the name of that data set. And when we output it, we convert it to a point, and I just give it the input name plus underscore point to write it out. And I'm just writing it out to the same geodatabase. So the iterators could become helpful if you have a lot of data sets to work with and want to go through them. If we want to run this one, it was in the state that it was already run. And so if I run this one, it should loop through, well, just both of these, and it should write out two new point files to this geodatabase. And we'll watch it go here. It's going to do the hopefully first feature class, and iterate through each of those. And it gives you the little history report there, your details, and it finished. And so in this case, in addition to our study sites polygons, we have our points that are available also. And these just become those features on the map now, or we created those inside there. So iterators can be pretty helpful. And as you saw in here, there's a lot of different ones depending on what you want to iterate through. Again, if you have a lot of items to do, it can be really helpful. And some of Esri's batch tools that I've had problems with, for one, I have problems with for some reason, is building pyramids. And they have, the batch pyramid builder, and you're supposed to be able to build them all by just launching that in batch. But a lot of times I'll end up with not all of them built for some reason. So I just have a tool that iterates through each raster and does it one at a time, which most of the time seems to be a better approach. So again, they can be helpful for a number of different processes that you need to do. So they come in handy. So let me get rid of those points. So that's where we wrote those out. And let me delete that. And let me delete this. Close this. I'll go ahead and save this model. And let's look at one more here. That in-memory option, if we go into edit mode here, becomes helpful again as these models get bigger and depending on how many intermediate steps, data sets you have along the way, and if you have system resources to support how much stuff you would store in memory. But this is the same model where we iterate through all of these. And when we get to this feature to point step, I don't really need to retain that feature class for every one of these data sets and write it to disk every time. So where it says output feature class, if I paste on the front of that memory with a backslash and then the output data set, it's not going to write that to disk. It just holds it there. And then I end up creating, on this example, it just creates a table instead of that feature class. But this is my primary output. This is just an intermediate data set along the way that if I don't have to write it to disk, it's very helpful when you run the model not to have all that traffic going back and forth, and it's just going to save time. Your model's going to run more quickly. So here, if I run this, those data sets never get created here. There's just tables that get created. So if you watch this thing, it jumps right through that feature to point really quickly, as in the other model, it's quite a bit slower to write it out there. So that much quicker when we store it in memory. And if we refresh this now, I just end up with those tables at the end, and this never got written to disk. So that can be really helpful for big models. Again, if you have resources, I recommend taking advantage of this if you can. And sometimes, when I'm testing the model, I'll write it out just to make sure it's all working okay, and then change it to the memory workspace, as I'm comfortable with making sure the output looks right and kind of verifying what we get looks like it should. Okay. Let me delete this. And delete this. And so those are all the models that I had in that, the example models that I had in that project, just to kind of look at and get started, and serve as some examples for getting going. For the last 10 minutes, I was going to leave it for any questions, if anybody has any. And I think those resources through Esri's training tools are helpful. And, if there's something that you run up against and get stuck or want to talk about how to lay one of these out, I'm certainly always available to bounce ideas off here in the data hub and see what we can come up with to see if we can help you get started with this if it's going to be helpful. So does anybody have any questions online as we begin to wrap up?
And while people are thinking of any questions, I'll also note that this talk was recorded and it's going to be up on YouTube. So once it is, I'll make sure to send that out to everyone, as well as a link to this example that Bruce created.
And the slides, I guess, right, if they're helpful at all, if anybody needs them, yeah.
Absolutely.
And yeah.
Poorly phrased question.
No,
Record of it.
that's good. That's good stuff. That's good. We should take a look at your, I think, specific case and see what we can figure out. So I hope that was a helpful introduction to Model Builder and real basics, what we could cover in a short time to get started. And again, launching off of this, those modules in Esri training are helpful for sure. And certainly reach out to me if you think that there's some ideas you want to talk about or created a model for some specific research or class you're doing. But it's certainly a really handy tool to capture all those processing workflows and not have to run all those different pieces manually time and time again. So being able to retain that is certainly a valuable thing. Just going to show that one more thing where you export a model. This is where you can get it out to Python if you want to take a look at it in there. So, because I won't export it right now because I have OneDrive pause, so it wouldn't cause trouble. But anyway, that's where you get to export it to Python if you want in that specific example. Remember, either autosave or save your model. If you don't, it'll prompt you before closing, and saving your project is a separate step there. So I think that's everything I have, unless anybody has any other questions. Appreciate you coming out for the workshop, and we look forward to seeing you at other tech talks or grad student workshops.
Yeah, I think the next few tech talks are on GitHub, version control, and we have a few on generative AI. So keep an eye on the library's calendar for that, as well as on the graduate student essentials, or as well as for the graduate student essentials workshops. And we hope you have a good week. Feel free to give us a shout if you have any follow-up questions.